The courtroom is completely silent. A federal judge leans forward. He looks at the frail, bearded man sitting in an orange prison jumpsuit and asks one simple question. Where is the gold? The man is Thomas G. Thompson. He is a genius, a visionary engineer, and the greatest treasure hunter in American history. He sits in his chair and stares straight ahead. He says, absolutely nothing. For the past 9 years, Tommy Thompson has been locked inside a federal prison cell. He's not serving a standard sentence. He doesn't have a release date. In fact, Tommy holds the keys to his own jail cell. The judge has made it crystal clear. If Tommy answers that one question, if he tells the United States government where he hid 500 missing gold coins, he can walk out of those prison doors today, a free man. But he won't. Instead, he chooses to rot in a concrete box, accumulating a fine of $1,000 for every single day he remains silent. This is the story of the greatest treasure hunt in human history. A $400 million discovery, a 15-year game of cat and mouse with the FBI, and a fatal obsession that drove a brilliant mind to absolute madness. What happens when a man finds everything he ever dreamed of and decides he'd rather die in a cage than share a single ounce of it? To understand the madness of Tommy Thompson, we have to travel back in time to September of 1857. The SS Central America was a majestic steamer, an absolute titan of the ocean. But more importantly, it was carrying the lifeblood of the American economy. The ship was sailing from Panama to New York. In its cargo hold were 3 tons of pure glittering gold, the freshly mined fortunes of the California gold rush. We are talking about thousands of freshly minted coins, raw gold dust, and massive solid gold ingots, some weighing as much as an 80-pound dumbbell. In today's money, the cargo was worth over $400 million. But the SS Central America never made it to New York. Off the coast of the Carolinas, the ship sailed directly into the teeth of a Category 2 hurricane. For 2 agonizing days, the crew fought the storm. But it was useless. On September 12, 1857, the SS Central America lost its battle. It sank to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, taking 425 souls down with it. The economic impact was immediate. The loss of that much gold triggered the Panic of 1857. But as the world moved on, the shipwreck became a legend. It earned a new name, the Ship of Gold. For over 130 years, treasure hunters and dreamers obsessed over its location. But there was a massive problem. The ship didn't just sink in shallow waters. It went down in the abyss, 7,000 feet below the surface. Over 1.5 miles down, the water pressure at that depth is roughly 3,200 pounds per square inch. It's enough to crush a military submarine like an empty soda can. The gold was completely untouchable, out of reach of human technology, until a young, eccentric engineer from Columbus, Ohio, decided to build the impossible. Enter Tommy Thompson. Tommy wasn't your typical treasure hunter. He was a brilliant, socially awkward scientist. He would wear the exact same clothes every single day. He slept in his office. And above all, he was obsessed with the Ship of Gold. Tommy realized that finding the shipwreck wasn't an adventure. It was a math problem. He used complex statistical formulas to map out exactly where the ship might have drifted, but he needed a robot capable of surviving the crushing pressure of the deep ocean. And most importantly, he needed money. In the mid-1980s, Tommy approached the wealthiest individuals in Ohio. Doctors, real estate moguls, publishers. He pitched them his dream. He promised them astronomical returns. He told them, "Fund my expedition, and we will rewrite history." 161 investors believed him. They handed Tommy Thompson $12.7 million in cash. With the money secured, Tommy built a state-of-the-art 6-ton remotely operated vehicle. He named it Nemo. In the summer of 1988, Tommy and his crew sailed out into the Atlantic Ocean, 200 miles off the coast of South Carolina. Aboard his research vessel, Tommy stares at a bank of flickering television monitors. Thousands of feet below them, the robot Nemo is crawling across the barren ocean floor. For weeks, they had found nothing but mud. The investors were getting nervous. The money was burning fast. And then, the sonar pinged. Through the grainy black and white feed of the deep-sea camera, shapes began to emerge from the darkness. Timbers, a massive anchor, and then the cameras panned across the ocean floor. The crew completely stopped breathing, spread across the seabed like a carpet of glittering stars against the dark mud. Was the gold? It was a sight no human had seen in 131 years. Stacks of gold bars, thousands of perfectly preserved double eagle coins. Tommy Thompson had actually done it. He had found the ship of gold. The recovery operation was slow and agonizing, but highly successful. Using Nemo's delicate robotic claws, Tommy brought up an unimaginable fortune. When the news broke, Tommy became an overnight sensation. He was hailed as the Columbus of the deep sea. The investors who had given him millions were ecstatic. They were about to become incredibly rich. But as Tommy stood on the deck of his ship, looking at hundreds of millions of dollars in solid gold, something inside his brain snapped. Maybe it was the sheer scale of the wealth. Maybe it was the paranoia of having to share it. The celebrations wouldn't last, because Tommy Thompson was about to make a decision that would destroy his life, betray everyone who trusted him, and turn him into one of the most wanted fugitives in America. The moment the gold breached the surface, the lawsuits began. Insurance companies from the 1800s suddenly came out of the woodwork, claiming the gold belonged to them because they had paid out claims on the shipwreck a century ago. Tommy found himself tied up in a brutal, decade-long legal war. He eventually won the rights to the majority of the treasure. By the year 2000, his company sold a massive portion of the recovered gold to a marketing group for $50 million. This was the moment the 161 investors had been waiting for. They had funded the entire operation. It was payday. But the checks never arrived. Months turned into years. The investors demanded to see the accounting. They demanded their share of the $50 million. But Tommy refused to open the books. He claimed that all the money was eaten up by legal fees and equipment costs. The investors realized they were being played. They banded together and sued Tommy Thompson. A federal judge ordered Tommy to appear in court and explain exactly where the money and the remaining gold had gone. The court date was set for August 13th, 2012. The judge waited, the lawyers waited, the investors waited. But Tommy Thompson never showed up. He had vanished into thin air. An arrest warrant was immediately issued. The brilliant engineer was now a federal fugitive. How does a man with one of the most recognizable faces in the treasure hunting world just disappear? It turns out, Tommy Thompson applied the same obsessive calculating genius he used to find the ship of gold, to hide himself from the United States government. For years, the FBI chased a ghost. Tommy wasn't hiding alone. He was with his assistant and girlfriend, Allison Antikyre. Together, they became masters of evasion. They never used credit cards. They never put their names on a lease. They abandoned their cell phones and cut all ties with their families. Tommy operated entirely in cash. He used fake names, fake IDs, and altered his appearance. They moved from state to state, living in cheap motels and mobile home parks, staying just one step ahead of the federal agents. Tommy was so paranoid, he even read books on how to evade law enforcement and live off the grid. He kept thousands of dollars stuffed in hidden compartments. The U.S. Marshals tracked leads all over the country, but every time they got close, Tommy was already gone. He was a phantom. But living as a fugitive is exhausting. The paranoia eats away at your mind. You can never relax. You can never trust anyone. And after years on the run, the genius made a fatal mistake.
Every story we cover here is real. Real people, real decisions, real consequences. If this story stayed with you, I'd love to know what you think. Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss the next one. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next vault.